Hey guys, Matt here with episode 1 of Garch Edits, and in this episode we're going to cover frequency separation and skin retouching. So stay tuned. Just opened up this video or this image of Rachel for the first editing tutorial video that we're going to do on skin retouching. All I've done to the image so far is gone to the lens corrections and enabled profile corrections. Everything else is straight out of the camera. Shot this on a Sigma 35 1.4 art lens, ISO 50, aperture of 1.4, and a shutter speed of 1/800th of a second. So first thing we're going to do with our image is we want to apply frequency separation to the image. Frequency separation is just a technique that separates the image into two frequencies, a high frequency and a low frequency. And we'll talk about that more in just a moment. But the best way to go about doing it is to create an action, because the action is going to speed up your workflow a lot. So I'm going to walk you guys through the steps of actually creating an action. So what you're going to do is go up here in the top right corner, and you want to go ahead and create a new action. And we're just going to title this FS1, okay, because it's frequency separation 1. And we're going to go ahead and hit record. At this point, we are going to duplicate our layer. We're going to title it LF. We're going to duplicate it again, and we're going to title it HF. From there, we're going to deselect the high frequency layer. We are going to select the low frequency layer, and we're going to go up here to filter, blur, whoops, try that one more time, blur, Gaussian blur, and you want to make sure that the Gaussian blur is just about enough so the image is blurred. Right? You really want to make the skin kind of blur together. So for me, I think around 10 pixels on this image works beautifully. Okay. Once that's done, you're going to go back and select the HF layer. You're going to make it visible. You're going to go up to the top, image, apply image, and you want to make sure that your layer is selected to low frequency, and you are subtracting. Okay. All this should be the same. Scale 2, offset 128. Right. Go ahead and hit OK. And then you want to double click on your layer, high frequency layer, and change the blend mode to linear light. From that point, you're going to command click low frequency as well, and you are going to command G to create a group and title it frequency separation. Now you can stop recording. A couple of things you need to do. First and foremost, up here you want to click on the little open boxes next to set current layer for both of those. You also want to do it for Gaussian blur. Okay. Before Gaussian blur, you want to click on the select layer low frequency, and up here you want to put in a stop so that you remind yourself that, hey, I need to adjust the blur so that the skin is slightly out of focus. Okay. And then you want to mark allow continue. Apply the image and make the group. Okay. So now if we go and we delete this frequency separation that we've just done, and we go back to our action that we've got here, FS1, and we hit play, it's going to say, hey, I need to adjust the blur so that the skin is slightly out of focus. You hit continue, and now you can blur it and change it to your desire for each image that you do. It's going to stick to 10.1 because that's what we used the very first time. But again, keep in mind, you'll probably change it quite often. Hit OK. You're here. This is all should be good. Just lets you know where you're at. Go ahead and hit OK. Hit OK. And boom, you now have a frequency separation action saved. We want to open up our group. The high frequency is all the details. So if we make it so that only we can see the high frequency, you'll see that the image becomes super sharp. Okay. If we bring back that low frequency and get rid of the high frequency, now you see the image is blurred and we just see the tones. In the high frequency layer, typically you're going to want to address this first. And what you're going to want to do is use the clone stamp button, because here you can get rid of some blemishes. Okay. Get rid of those little mouth lines. Now, this image is kind of tough because of the fact that I shot it wide open at 1.4. It goes from very detailed to very blurry very quickly. So you've got to be extremely selective about where you are choosing in regards to the high frequency range, because you don't want to replace a very highly detailed in focus area with your out of focus, not detailed at all area. But it's very great for getting rid of those details. Another thing, when you're using the clone stamp, you want to make sure that your hardness is up. Okay, 34% is even on the low end. You might want to bump it up to like 50%. You do not want a soft brush for clone stamping, but this is where you can get rid of some of those blemishes in the skin and make an overall smoother looking tone. You can also get rid of some stray hairs, which is great because we don't want those stray hairs flying around. Okay. And fantastic. Now if we zoom out a little bit, so far, not a whole lot of difference. Kind of get rid of that a little bit. Let's go over here and let's soften this up just a bit. Okay, great. And fantastic. Don't have a whole lot of work to do with Rachel's image. She makes my life pretty simple. Gotta love that. Okay, again, get rid of those stray hairs just a little bit. Beautiful. Cool. And let's get rid of this one too. Okay, cool. So we've got Rachel. Again, there's your high frequency. Again, changing those details, kind of getting rid of some of the blemishes in the high frequency range. Going to the low frequency range, you want to change your tool. So you're not going to be using the clone stamp anymore. For this, a lot of people use a lot of different things. I've seen people use the healing brush. I will use that sometimes. I typically like to go for the lasso tool, and I like to have my feather right around 26. But what's important with the lasso tool is you want to make sure that when you do if you go ahead and hit Q, it's going to show you what you've got selected. Okay, that the blur is not too bad. So we're going to go blur, Gaussian blur. Now I'm going to lower this down quite a bit. So let's go down to like 6, just to kind of start blending together those tones. And you want to find your areas where the undervalued areas are kind of low. So like this one, let's bump this up quite a bit to kind of make that eye. So let's go up to 16.2. Perfect. And here, we're going to, again, lower this one down a little bit, not quite so much. And same thing, going back to the blur. I don't want to get rid of about there. Great. One of the things you want to make sure you're not doing when you are using frequency separation, specifically in the low frequency area, is going overboard, because one of the things that can happen if you just, fly it way up here and make everything look super silky smooth is that you're going to end up with an image that just doesn't look realistic at all. It's going to kind of have that Barbie doll vibe to it, and it's going to end up ruining the image because your figure or your subject is just going to be plastic looking. So let's get out just a little bit, and if we go ahead and click and unclick, there you're at. So that's our skin retouching. There's a couple different ways you can go about doing that, but that's the way that I found to be pretty successful. So here, let's show you one other thing though. With the low frequency range, so I use the lasso tool. If you want to go ahead and use the spot healing tool, you can go in there, right? We're going to select, whoops, excuse me, healing brush tool. We're going to select, and now you're going to color up in here. Okay, not a huge fan of that. You could also use the clone brush if you want, where you're cloning, but again, I'm not a huge fan of that. I like using the lasso tool. Just works best for me. So the next step that we would go from there is dodging and burning, and that will be a totally different video, but I hope this helped you guys out a little bit. If you've got questions or feedback, leave it in the comments. Would love to hear from you guys. Thanks a lot. Bye.